Right.
You want more players with a 5. You want what I call many paths to value. You want a little bit of steals, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Now, as you're drafting, if you're going to draft Kyle Schwarber, it's not the worst thing to draft Chandler Simpson. But do know that you are getting more risk, because if something happens to Schwarber, well, there goes your homers. If something happens to Simpson, there goes your homers. If you got two 2020 type guys instead, well, of course, you don't want an injury, but then you're not deficient in any one category. And
Right.
in a roto league, it makes it easier to play the game the more higher dimensional players you have.
Yep. How far back are you? Like, say you're in March. How far back? Say you're March 15th. How far back are you going to find good data as far as what the market value is? Do you go anything longer than, like, say 2 weeks before, 1 week before? What suffices as good data?
That's a great question. You always want to balance volume with homogeneity of data, right? I don't want, if I only had 3 drafts from the past 2 weeks, that's not enough market intel. I want more. But of course, you want the shortest amount possible. If you had 30 drafts, in my opinion, that's probably enough to do it. So if I have in the past week 30 drafts, use 1 week's of data. I find that at this time of year in the NFBC, about 1 month or 3 weeks to 1 month is about the right time to get it. And you can do that. As we're going into March, more and more people are drafting. You might be able to shrink that into the prior 2 weeks.
Yep.
When you're doing main events and you're doing that the week of, if you have a whole plethora of main events the week before, just use the week before, right? So my message is 30 drafts are usually pretty good, or I would say a compilation of about 8 to 10 auctions is sufficient as well.
And one of the great things about the NFBC is you can sort by type of draft too. And you can sort by auction. You can by draft champions, 12 versus 15. These are all important considerations. A 15 team draft and whole league is going to have markedly different closer values than a 12 team online championship league,
Right,
or an auction league. It's going to be completely different values as far as it goes. And that's the beautiful thing. And you got to be able to account for that.
Yeah, you have to use the closest information you have to the correct one. Or if you're really good and know that, in a draft champions league, well, the closers are pushed up even more because you can't get any new sources. There's no waiver wire. Then you can adjust on the fly. But again, try to get as close as you can to the number of teams and the format so that you can have the best source of market data as you can.
What's the biggest mistake people make playing using projections when trying to do their drafts?
I mean, I think the biggest mistake in general is people either ignore the projections totally or say, you know what, I think the projection is just wrong here, and they ignore it totally. If you have a projection of a player and they say it's a 5th round player, and you say, no, it's a 3rd round player. What you want to do is you want to quantify that. The projection says 30 homers and 75 RBIs is X. If you want to say, okay, he's not going to get 30 homers, my eye says he's going to get 35, that's fine. But value what those numbers are. Take an auction calculator and see what does the extra 5 homers give you in dollars. Is it a round? Is it 3 rounds? Don't just go off and make your own assumptions. And I think the mistake people do is they say, it's worth another round, where it's probably worth just like 2 or 3 picks.
Yeah. One of the common mistakes I've personally made is I feel like I like a guy, I've done some research, but my projection or maybe not even my projection, but projections say otherwise. And I'm like, what am I missing here? And I'm like, it's fine. It'll be fine. No, it's usually not fine. Usually the projections account for something that I have not accounted for. And I think it's important when you have an outlier. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes you have to believe in yourself. Other times, though, you have to do some digging and say, okay, what do they know that I don't know? Because chances are it's something.
I think it also matters on the type of thing that you're seeing. If you think, no, this guy is just going to have a great year, he's just going to hit harder. I know he's improved. Last year was a down year. Unless you have an actual reason. Now, if you have a reason to doubt projections, for example, last year he was playing through an injury, so the projections would incorporate injured data, then that's a reason to say, okay, the projections have a blind spot. That's different. If you know for a fact he has a totally different swing this year, and somehow that's going to affect it better, he is going for a bigger fly ball loft, okay, that's something. The bigger thing, I think, more than that, which, again, I can't tell whether a coach changing a swing is actually going to make him better. To me, that's noise. But playing time, if you have a reason to know that a player is going to be moved up in the leadoff spot and increases playing time, whereas last year he was batting in the 9 hole, that's significant. That's not something that an algorithm is going to do. That's some information that you're going to get on top of it. So to me, that information is valid, and that is what you should be pushing up, not just your eye of, oh, he's better, oh, the change is made, right? Unless you have an actual reason or more specific playing time, don't veer that much off projections. They're going to be right in the long run. Sure, you'll be right 4 times. You'll also be wrong 6 times. The long run says you'll be wrong more than you are right.
Indeed. This is we've already kind of are starting to touch on the fringes of this question, but can humans beat projections?
Again, in the long run, I don't think they can. I think that we've shown that even a simple Marcel projection, and if anybody's not familiar with Marcel projection is what's called Marcel the monkey is a monkey who types on a typewriter. And they say that if you have 1 million monkeys typing on a million typewriters for 1 million years, eventually you're going to produce the work of William Shakespeare. So if you do the simplest thing, which is take past 3 years history, do some age regression, some just general regression to the mean, right? Neutralize for some park factors, just some basic things that you don't have to be that scientific about. You don't have to get into pitch velocity and blah, 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 right? But you just do that. That gets you like 60, 65% of the way there. That gets you a fantastic set of projections. Now, if you do all the other nuances and add some StatCast data and pitch velocity and stuff plus and weather and whatever, that gets you maybe to 65 to 70. The human eye is not going to be able to do that. If even the simplest algorithm can get you 65% of the way, I don't think that humans in the long run are going to be better. Again, to me, the value in the human, aside from doing what's fun, which of course we're here to have fun. So if you want to pick a player, go ahead and pick him.
Yeah.
But if you have reasons to know that the projections don't have this included, oh, the projections didn't see this, this is the blind spot, that's where the humans go. It's not doing what projections do better, it's calculating what the projections have missed because the projections can't see it. The player that comes to mind is Nico Horner. Okay, Nico Horner was always fantastic, but he was not projected initially to be a good player because the minor league data, he was hurt, he missed time, he had bad success in the minors. So when you're projecting MLEs and major league equivalents, it just didn't detect projections there. But if you were a Cubs scout and if you were somebody who followed the guy, you would know that there's nothing in his statistics in the minors that has any indication on what he is, which is an average guy and a stolen base guy. So that's where humans can detect, where the projections just can't handle it and just have no way of knowing.
Nico Horner was drafted in the first round in 2018. He spent very little time in the minors too. You know, COVID did a number a little bit in terms of him. Like
COVID, right?
Yeah, because remember 2020, he played 48 games that year, and you know he had a 571 OPS because he had gotten called up at the end of the 2019 season. There was no minor leagues team to send him to during 2020, so he just muddled along that year. And it kind of changed who we were about that. So yeah, knowing the context there is so super important.
Yeah. The other thing I want to point out is that projections are very good at taking history of what has been done and then studying it and saying, well, because it's been done in the past, here you go. Players who have played for 5 years, who we know their true talent, minus an aging curve of, the 30, the 31, they're aging. Projections do really great. The old boring guys, George Springer, those guys, humans are terrible at. Humans think, oh, George Springer's going to break down, old boring guy, forget it. But projections keep saying, keep buying the old boring guys and you're going to be rewarded. It's not just knowing where projections are wrong. You should also know where projections are right.
Yes.
And where humans are very wrong. That actually is even more valuable because then you could really find an advantage by getting these old boring guys and sticking with them.
Absolutely. Kind of segues into my next topic, like the guys that are hard to project. For me, there's a couple categories. One, player that has very limited minor league experience, burst on the scene to the majors pretty quickly, either had a lot of success or struggled and failed a little bit there too. You know, you look at, for instance, Nick Kurtz. You know, he went so crazy, got to the majors so fast, What does he do for an encore now that scouting reports are going to be better on him? You know, he's been around the league a couple of times. Or is he personally going to improve even better? I think that's one category of player I find very difficult to project.
Yeah, I mean, number one, like we said, is minor league players who don't have the track record very, very hard, and you'll most often see projections take the under on them. Marcel. We talked about Marcel.
Yeah.
Marcel's default is for any minor league player to project them as the major league average. Like Marcel has no idea what to do with literally anybody in the minors. Then you have some projection systems who use major league equivalents. They're not as great. Sometimes they translate. Certain skills translate. Some speed translates, right? You don't have, when somebody is striking out 50% of the time in the minors, okay, that's going to translate poorly. But it's often hard to project the actual walk rate in the majors. Play discipline changes, right? You're playing against different caliber pitchers. Certain things connect. Power, you don't have players hitting 70 homers in the minors, right? You have to sort of project power and power growth. People grow in the majors. Take a guy like Ketel Marte. Ketel Marte came up as a speed guy. Remember Todd Zola was saying, I love Ketel Marte. He's just going to steal 40 bases. And what did he become? Doesn't steal. Now he hits for power because that power grew. So player profiles change, and that's why minor league guys and guys that come up are really the hardest to project. To me, the other hard one to project is the injury guys.
Yeah.
Who can tell if they're injury? I mean, Jacob deGrom. I mean, what are you projecting from this year? To me, you know what he is, but is he going to be healthy? Is the playing time? Playing time projections are the toughest. How do you know? Is Trevor Story going to have 600 at bats again? Who would have thought that, right?
Right, exactly. This is the year Mike Trout's going to have a full healthy season.
Sure.
Excuse me. Yeah, how many times have we gone through that? And the whole concept of, is a player injured or injury prone? I think those are two different classifications. Obviously, you and Ruben, talk about injuries. Ruben obviously knows his baseball injuries very well.
Yeah, it's very handy to have a guy on my show who actually does injuries to get a little bit more inside information, know what to stay away from, what not to stay away from. I remember the best thing he ever said was, I remember Schwarber tore his ACL or MCL, I can't remember which one, and he said, oh, he saw the injury. He's like, yep, he's out, and I predict he's going to be back in time for the World Series.
Yeah,
and lo and behold, he showed up in the World Series, and there you go. So it's great to have an injury guy on the squad. Absolutely.
Third category of player that I find difficult to project: players coming over from other leagues. KBO, Japan, Cuba was really hard because good luck getting real data there, even. And sometimes they the player would have to have spent 3 months idle, not playing at all, just to try to emigrate into the United States there. In many of these cases, so I find those players are very difficult. And every year we're going to have a class of players coming back, either that were born and raised in KBO or the NPL, or former players in the U.S. that went and improved their skills and came back. I think these are both very difficult players to try to project.
Yeah, one thing you'll notice is that whereas a lot of players who come over in leagues, I'm talking pure projections here, you're going to see some projections project them for a fantastic ratio. Take Tatsuya Imai. Some projections are going to have them sub 4, some even like sub 3.5. But you take a projection, I don't know, let's say like Derek Carty's projection, they don't know what to do with foreign players. They're projecting like a 5 ERA. Right? You just don't know. I remember it was last year or the year before, like Roki Sasaki or Yoshinobu Yamamoto, just such a variance in what people are projecting because they don't know what to do. The thing is that there is an equivalent for Japan or Korea, to come over, and there are an equivalent, but it doesn't mean that the players hit that in their first spot. I mean, it takes a year or so to get used to the ball, the regimen, the number of pitchers that you're thrown, everything. Players might not hit their actual stride for another year. I mean, look at Shohei Ohtani. He was not a fantastic player the first 2 years. It Took him some time, but obviously we know what he's been doing. Yamamoto also he was okay the first year, but he's really blossomed the following year. So it does take the time. I'd be cautious, especially with pitchers coming over. If hitters too, I'd be cautious to undersell them, especially in their first year. But in their second year, once they've gotten used to it, I actually would revert more back to the equivalents, and you can trust some of the old stuff a little bit better.
Yeah, to illustrate your point too, like Yu Darvish, for instance, there. Yeah, remember how he couldn't buy the strike zone? Oh, and a lot of times it's because major league umpires weren't used to his repertoire of pitches. Kodai Senga with the ghost fork. I mean, he struggled to get calls. He still does, actually, for that matter. But because it's a different type of pitch, you pitch a different type of way. It's not even like a pernicious like hazing sort of thing. It's just it's unfamiliar to me. Okay, I'll call it a ball. And that I think that happens a little bit there, and I think that's something. How about players like that are coming over, that are coming back, and Cody Ponce, for instance, this year is one guy I'm thinking of. But sometimes these players improve their repertoire, they add velocity, they change their pitch mix, they have a taste of success, and they come back as a changed pitcher.
I like those. I actually prefer those. The guy that comes in mind from, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago or 10 years ago was Colby Lewis. Remember him?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And he came back and he was like a 10 strikeout and outing type of guy. That to me is a guy who had the major league experience, then went away, got the actual skills, came back. I'd rely on that adjustment a little bit more than just a guy who's never played in the majors before and who's just coming over, because they have the regimen, they have the skill and doing it. And again, you can't translate, the 1 ERA that they're going to have in Japan, but they are going to be effective pitchers. They know how to go deeper into games.